As someone who cries over just about anything, seeing a stray dog, seeing an elderly person eating alone, or even watching a movie, I oddly enough do not cry when I'm reading. Seeing as my favorite genre is romance, it might just be that I'm not reading sad books, so for this week, I am going to read sad books only, according to TikTok and YouTube. What books? I don't know. Definitely a Kristen Hanna book, because every video I've ever seen of people reading her books, they're weeping, and I've wanted to read her books for a while, so we will see what we get through this week, but the goal is to cry, so join me on reading sad books. The book I wanted to start with was The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna, and I don't know if you have ever seen the Libby app. Basically the library on your phone, so you can rent out books, you have 3 weeks to read them. It's like, as long as you have a library card, you can get the app. You can transfer from the app to your Kindle, so I thought that I reserved The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna to transfer to my Kindle, but I actually got it on audiobook. And since I leave tomorrow, I don't think I'm gonna have time to go to Barnes & Noble and actually pick up a book. So I think I'm just gonna listen to the audiobook and get the vibes, because it is an over 400 page book. I don't wanna buy it and not end up liking it. And since I've never read her books before, the size of the book worries me a little bit, okay? Okay, let's read. I can't stop crying. Every page I turn, it's like my tears dry up, and then I read another page and I start crying. Oh, holy crap, this book is so sad. I don't know the last time I cried reading a book. I've really been trying to think. I think I cried during 1,000 Splendid Suns, but other than that, I don't really shed tears when I read. This changed that for me, as you saw last night. I was a little distraught after reading this. This book feels like it just revived me into an obsession with reading again, because how could it have been so good? This is my first Kristen Hanna book, and I don't even know how to summarize this book, because you go through so much time and so much is happening. But basically, you follow this woman named Elsa. She's around 25 years old, still lives with her parents. In the 20s, the only acceptable thing was really to be a wife, and so she was deemed too old at that point. Her family never showed her love. She impulsively leaves her house in the middle of the night, sleeps with a man. That man impregnates her. Her dad kicks her out of the house, makes her live with this man, and she marries this man that she doesn't know. Basically, you see her life start there, have a child, moving into when the Great Depression started to begin and dust storms started just all over Texas. So she lived on a wheat farm, and the wheat crops could no longer bring harvest if there was no rain and dust everywhere. She takes her children to journey to California, because the talk of the town in Texas and all across the Midwest was that California was the land of milk and honey. There was work, there was ways to provide for your family. So a bunch of migrants from Oklahoma, Texas, all these places moved to California, and it is nothing like they expect. So you follow her story, and it goes between kind of like her POV and Loretta, her daughter's POV. I just wept so hard reading this, because as much as I understand it's historical fiction, like, I think it just felt so realistic. And this is the author's note at the end of the book. Although my novel focuses on fictional characters, Elsa Martinelli is a representative of hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children who went west in the 1930s in search of a better life. Many of them, like the pioneers who went west 100 years before them, brought nothing more than a will to survive and a hope for a better future. Their strength and courage were remarkable. In writing the story, I tried to present the history as truthfully as possible. The strike that takes place in the novel is fictional, but it is based on strikes that took place in California in the 30s. So obviously, yes, this is fictional. These people aren't real, but they represent real people that lived through these crazy, horrible, so sad circumstances and situations. I didn't know that I loved historical fiction as much as I do, but I'm realizing every historical fiction that I've read, which there might just be 2 or 3, I rate 5 stars. So there's a love there. Book 1, got the tears rolling. My next book, I think, is going to be If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin. I've had a few friends tell me I have to read this book, and I have it on Kindle, and I've never read it. So I feel like that could be a good one. Every TikTok I've seen that's like books that make you cry has this book in it. So curious to see what's in it. A little nervous, but I think it's just a week to let the tears flow. Cover on Kindle is honestly scary. I don't love it, but I've seen the book in person at Target, and then there's an updated cover that is so cute, but I already have it on Kindle, so I shouldn't buy it. If this right here, 48% done with If He Had Been With Me after literally one day, doesn't show you how much time I spent in my car because of LA traffic, nothing else will. I had some driving to do, and If He Had Been With Me on audiobook was available on the Libby app, so I was like, okay, what else am I gonna do on the road? I just haven't found it to be that captivating, but at this point, it's taken until 48% of the way through. There is now finally a twist in the story that is starting to intrigue me, but it's not enough to keep going. So I'm glad it's a shorter book. So far, there's been no emotional anything with this book. So, I don't know. And you can't blame that it's on audiobook because you saw me crying listening to the audiobook of The Four Winds on the plane to Mexico. Finney and Autumn, they're in high school, their moms are best friends, so they grew up together being best friends, and it's kind of this thing, as a reader, you're like, why are you guys not together? Like, you clearly should be together. The beginning of the book tells you what happens at the end. There's a horrible car accident, and the title of the book, If He Had Been With Me, is said in the first chapter. If he had been with me, everything would have been different. So the beginning really does put a little bit of intrigue because it starts off horrible with this accident, but then you go to the past way before any accident occurs. So then you're kind of waiting like, when is it going to happen? What's going on? So now that I'm halfway through the book, it's starting to pick up again. Who knows what's going to happen? I don't. But there is a horrible car accident. I'm sure that is when it becomes really sad. So let's read. This book is so fall. The leaves are deliciously dry and crunchy. I am completely surrounded by their dusty smell, even over my head. I laugh out loud and the scent tumbles down my throat. I burst out of the top and the pile shifts sideways over the grass. I pick up handfuls and toss them in the air. They fall around me like snow and I throw myself onto my back and look at the fading light in the sky. Okay, update on If He Had Been With Me. I'm on chapter 81. These chapters fly by. I'm obsessed with how the book is laid out. I 100% think the latter half of the book is significantly better than the first part of it, and I'm really hooked in now and starting to love the characters, starting to love everything about it. I'm 91% done. No tears have been shed. I really haven't felt too emotionally drawn. The thing like latching onto my heart is the first chapter and knowing that imminent crash accident is gonna come, and it's just so nerve-wracking getting close to the end because I'm like, what's gonna happen? I have to pick Lyndon up from the airport literally so soon. I'm just gonna try to read one more chapter, and then when he's with me, I'm gonna try to still finish it by tonight. Also, I never sit at my desk, and I did just now to read my Bible and journal, and I think I have to start sitting at my desk more. I felt really productive, and I think it was really good for me. I just finished the book. I'm honestly so shook. Every single last chapter, a new plot twist just fell. It was just too much all at once. If you haven't read this book, I definitely recommend Googling the trigger warnings before reading it because it's pretty intense. It's a very high school book, and I kind of feel like I've grown out of that genre for myself right now. And I feel like the first half of the book was really slow / uninteresting to me. The latter half was really good. Like, I would say the latter half was like a 4.5, and the first half was like a 2. I feel like I would give it like a 3.5. It was really intense, guys. I feel really shook. No tears, however, extremely sad. Like, heavy heart reading that. So, moving on. I started The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna last night around 11 p.m. and I was fighting for my life to stay awake. I was so exhausted, but I did not want to stop reading. The first chapter might be one of the most intriguing beginnings of a story ever. This book takes place in the late 30s and 40s during World War II, but the first chapter is 50 years in the future in the 90s from the coast of Oregon. This woman who is dying of cancer opens this box of all of her past memorabilia. Her son comes up to the attic as she's looking through it and sees the ID tag and said, who is this woman? Who is Juliet? It's so confusing. You're like, what the heck? Who is Juliet? And then you go into the 30s in France. I feel like I didn't even describe that well. You just need to read this book. I am currently on chapter 6, and so I read yesterday 50 pages before falling asleep. I have not felt this fired up to read a book ever, maybe. I can sense this being one of my favorite books ever, which is crazy. Ooh, I need to fill this out too. What is it about historical fiction that just has a hold over me? Holy crap. I can't even believe what I'm reading. That destroyed me. So I got engaged during my week of reading the saddest books I've ever read. So the dichotomy of that was crazy. I've been in 3 different horrifyingly sad worlds in these books, and then in my real life, I'm having the best week of my life. More on that in another video. I finished The Nightingale in Michigan while I was staying with my best friend Meredith, and you saw the clips. I cannot believe how heart-wrenching this book was and how fast I read it. I was not expecting that at all. In a fall weekend vlog, while I picked this book up, I literally told Lyndon that this will be the book I read over time so I don't get overwhelmed by the size. Maybe this will be my book that I read over time and I don't put a rush on reading. But I almost feel like I need to read it on Kindle because of how big it is. I read this so quickly. It overtook scrolling, it overtook sleep. I didn't want to do anything but finish this book. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is my first 6-star review. Weirdly, as much as it's a fictional book, felt personal to me. My grandma on my dad's side, she escaped Germany in one of the last boats to Ellis Island before everything hit the fan. And reading about the resilience of the women, you never really hear about women during wartime. What I love about Kristen Hanna's books, although I don't know how accurate everything is, in the back of the book she does talk about some of the ways she educated herself on the war and places she visited and places that fictional towns are based off of in real life, and I just felt so connected to this story. You follow 2 sisters, Isabel and Vian, and how these 2 women went about war so drastically differently and yet very similarly in a weird way. Isabel is this outspoken, against the grain. She is not a rule follower. She's like F the patriarchy vibes, and Vian is wanting to just protect her family and make sure her daughter is safe, and she will abide by any rules in order to do that. But you see over time how war changes their personality, changes their character, and it is just written so well. I can't even articulate that into words. The way so many different storylines, so many different character arcs, so many different things are happening in this book, and it gets woven together so seamlessly, is a work of art in itself. So if there's any book that I recommend you to read, it is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Reading these books this week has shown me historical fiction probably is my favorite genre, which is insane. Never thought we'd see the day that romance got replaced, but if you have any historical fiction recommendations, please comment them down below. I am in the mood to keep reading, and I think I'm just gonna go through Kristen Hanna's books because so far we have a 5-star and a 6-star. Thank you for watching. I can't believe I'm engaged. I hope you enjoyed this video. I love you guys. I'll see you soon, little reading Pookie Bears.